From the center of the universe and the home of your Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast.
Welcome to the X's and Argos pregame walkthrough, brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. Ben Grant, joined as always by JB, as we get you set for the 15th and final meeting of the season between the Hamilton Tiger Cats and your Toronto Argonauts. Before we get into the podcast today, I've got a really big announcement from Something in the Water. I'm hoping that you'll be able to join us this weekend, because on Saturday, actually there's two announcements here. So on Saturday, pregame, Something in the Water Brewing has got a lot of stuff going on. There's hot dogs, sausages, sandwiches available, but you can also get pint glasses of Longboat Pale Ale. Longboat is the beer dedicated to fans of the Double Blue. Of course, you've heard us talk about Longboat all season long, but they've also got the Longboat beer mug. And that is going to be available not only for purchase, but there's going to be some sort of deal as well where you can buy a 20-ounce Longboat and it comes in the mug that you can keep. So you got to get down there for that. Enjoy a Longboat, keep the mug. Purchase the mug separately if you want to go with something else. They've got a ton of award-winning beers. Enjoy a hot dog, sausage, whatever it is. You got to get down there. And then to tie into that, we are giving away a Longboat beer mug. And the way to enter, all you've got to do, you go on Twitter or X, go to the X's and Argos account, and we've tweeted out our contest with a picture of a can of Longboat and the Longboat beer mug beside it. All you got to do is retweet that tweet, and you are automatically entered. We're going to do the draw Friday afternoon, and you could win that Longboat beer mug. So lots of things going on with Something in the Water. Hope to see you down there. Pre-game, just steps from BMO Field. It's in Liberty Village, 151 East Liberty Street. Great place to go pre-game. Enjoy an award-winning beer and get yourself a hot dog while you're at it. So Something in the Water Brewing. Make a plan to be there Saturday. JB, huge show to talk about today. We got so much stuff going on. We have everything from birthdays to Pinball extending, which was a huge news. Mickey Donovan extends, and that was a big piece of news before Pinball extended his deal. The guys went to visit Holland Bloorview. We'll talk about that a little bit. Boris Bede passing the 1,000-point mark, which we can talk about. AJ Ouellette doing amazing things once again, this time not in the wrestling ring. Plus, we want to come up with a plan for rest down the stretch. And we've got our usual assortment of goodies, including the injury reports, a game preview, OCDC, one thing, predictions, put me down for 20, and CFL picks. All that more is coming up on this episode of the X's and Argos podcast. JB, let's get into things. First of all, right off the bat, happy birthday, JB. You have a remarkable birthday, and I know you. I know you're excited that you share your birthday with Wyndon McManus, Deshaun Amos, Curly Gittens Jr. We didn't know that until today.
Pretty amazing, really, when you think about all three having, like, I don't know statistically what the chances of that would be, but you would think it would be pretty low.
Yeah, not good. And then that's so peek behind the curtain. I was telling JB we're going through our lineup today, and I'm like, hey, it's these three guys' birthday today, and then I find out it's also JB's birthday. So that's I think even smaller odds for that. So yeah, pretty cool. The big news: Pinball has extended. This needed to happen. I don't care what the cost is. Pinball's arrival in Toronto turned this franchise around. We remember, it wasn't that long ago, the 2019 was not a great season. It was our inaugural X's and Argos season. It was not a good season of Toronto Argonauts football. Pinball arrived at the end along with John Murphy, and they completely overhauled things. And everything's gone right since then, pretty much. They've clinched the East Division 3 years in a row. They won a Grey Cup. They're on pace to set records this season. I have to imagine they just basically went to Pinball and said, "Here's a check. Fill in what you want, and let us know."
Yeah, I mean, he is the face of the franchise. He is the heart of the franchise. His knowledge and energy exudes throughout the franchise. I mean, you just cannot overstate how important he is to the success of the team. And it seems a no-brainer to reward him. And again, it's a fantastic, kind of nod that this is a team that is built to be good for years. This is not a one-off, let's win the Grey Cup and then, be in the hinterlands for 5 years. This is a desire to be the Calgary Stampeders, to be a perpetual Grey Cup participant or at least a threatener. So it's fantastic to see. I'm glad he's being recognized, and no one would question it, because certainly he is the brains and the heart. And when you have somebody who is both, they're pretty important.
Yeah, no kidding. And he was on overdrive today. There's some cool things too. Every time, the amazing thing, he's got such an interesting life that as much as we've heard Pinball talk in various different occasions, you learn something new almost every single time you hear Pinball. Today I learned that he was a Blue Jays fan before ever having heard of the Argos, because he grew up in Dunedin, which I knew, but I had forgotten about. My family had a place in Dunedin when I was a kid, and so I spent a lot of time down there, and I remember that sticking out in my head, but from decades ago. I hadn't thought about this in a long time. And yeah, hearing stories like this come up, I think are pretty cool too. So yeah, he's had Toronto ties since he was a little boy. So that's kind of cool that he is now like basically the king of Toronto. And I can't think of anyone else like bigger than Pinball in Toronto. There just isn't.
No. I mean, you're looking at like Toronto. It's amazing. I mean, it's a throwback to obviously when the Argos had a little tighter grasp on the city, and the world was less content heavy, and it was easier for a team to kind of be important. So it is a throwback to those days that his name still resonates the way, not many would really, like,
Right.
Basically a couple of all-time Leafs, he's sort of on the same categories like Wendell Clark or, Joe Carter. I mean, it's a pretty elite group of Toronto sports heroes.
Except what separates him is that he's still around doing stuff like at this level, right? Like, those guys that you mentioned, like they're great, Toronto sports heroes that all-time Toronto legends, no question. But like Pinball was a Grey Cup winning player, one as a coach. He's, doing what he's doing now, and he's at the top of the organization, and he's got one of the best teams in Argos history. Like, he's still doing it. It's been decades and decades of like top level involvement. So for me, that's what separates him from everybody else. So thrilled that he has been extended by the organization. Easiest move that the Toronto Argonauts have ever made. The other extension, unfortunately, almost lost this week was Mickey Donovan. And I really want to spend time, we've got a lot to get through today, obviously, but I think it's so important to understand for those that maybe aren't aware of how important Mickey Donovan has been over these last two seasons. Toronto's special teams, even in the good season they had in 2021, they won the East. And of course, they lost to Hamilton in the East final, but they won the East. They had a good season. Special teams weren't great. They had a lot of punts blocked. It seemed like every week that's what we were talking about, is the threat of punt blocks and things like that. Mickey Donovan came in. He didn't immediately transform everything, but he fixed one thing at a time. And last season, it was the punt protection. That wasn't an issue last year. And this year, it's been the evolution of Javon Leake in the return game. And he's now got Toronto special teams at the top of the league in a number of different categories. So this extension, I think, is massive for the Toronto Argonauts. And you, as a special teams guy, know how important that role is.
Yeah, and he has absolutely transformed them. They, as longtime listeners know, I have often banged the drum about the punt return, and the punt return is elite, and the kick return is also very good. They have the lowest number of special team penalties in the league by far. It is a very good unit, and it is, in my opinion, the reason that the Argos have been so dominant this year, because essentially, I don't think this team is better than last year's team, except that the special teams are better, and therefore, you have a 3-phase football team, and that's just very difficult to defeat. And the special teams have essentially won the Argos a bunch of games that they would have lost last year.
And I think often people that don't really understand the significance of a special teams coach think that it's player driven. And no, to be fair, a lot of coaching is like, if you have great players, you are going to look like a better coach. There's no question. But with Mickey Donovan, I think what stands out to me is that I see the stuff that he was putting in practice last season, and it didn't quite translate right away, but some of the drills they're doing, some of the things he's barking at them for during reps. And I've seen that appear on the football field this season. Things like instead of hustling to get down in front of a guy on punt return, the importance of that shifted a little bit. And now you see guys just kind of wanting to be up side by side, and he's got returners setting up their blocks better. So he's got blockers that are beside the defender, not knowing which way the returner is going to go. The returner sees what he's got, sets it up one way, goes back the other way, and that's where a lot of these Javon Leake returns are. That's where they're getting sprung, is that sort of technique. And that's stuff that I saw Coach Donovan going over in practice last season. And it took a while for guys to get it and to buy in and to come around on it. But you see the difference it's made. So, yeah, he's been huge. He's had a remarkable season.
Even statistically, they're third in big plays and they are first in defending big plays. I mean, those are the reasons that the Argos have won loss.
And continuity on a coaching staff, especially the coordinator level, I think it's going to be really hard to keep Coach Mace after this season. If I were any organization in the league, he'd be my number one candidate for a head coaching job. So I'm expecting turnover there for next season.
Yeah, but he may be Saskatchewan bound.
He's somewhere bound. Yeah, I don't know. I think it might be closer to home, but we'll see. We'll see how things go.
No, there's no. I don't know. We could debate that. I can't see.
That's an off-season topic.
I can't see Ottawa changing already.
Oh, I was going even closer to home, but okay. So let's get to the other two coordinators. Coach Dinwiddie, we know he's going to be around. He's signed as the head coach, and you've got the special teams coordinator now. So it's huge. You've got these guys in roles. That consistency helps the success of organizations. And it's something that the Argos have struggled with at times during the past. There's been a lot of turnover, and they're very lucky to have been able to keep the number of coaches that they've got. For a winning team especially, you don't typically get to keep guys around. And they really have. And they've been lucky or skilled in the guys that they found to replace guys who have moved on. So I think that's a huge move, Mickey Donovan coming back. This week, the Argos went to Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital. Awesome to see this. We see how much work they do with Holland Bloorview every year. Over 25 players went down. Pinball's down there as well. Chad Kelly, Sean Oakman, dozens of Argonauts down there distributing gifts to the kids, taking pictures, signing autographs, you name it. I love seeing their community involvement like this. And they do a good job talking about it on social media. I wish it was picked up more by mainstream media because they do so much stuff like this. Like Holland Bloorview is an amazing facility. The stuff they're doing there is awesome. And for the Argos to highlight that and show the work that's being done at Holland Bloorview, but also to show the amount of time that they're putting into things. And it seems like every week we're talking about an initiative that the Argos have, whether it's Food Bank or Holland Bloorview or whatever else it is. Every week they're doing something, and I wish this got more attention because the amount of time this team puts into the community is above and beyond, I think, what any other Toronto team is doing, and I think it unfortunately goes unnoticed for the most part by the mainstream sports fans. Let's get into our Boris Bede highlight section here. So Boris Bede, over 1,000 points on his career now with his field goals and extra points last week. 25th all-time in points scored, 25th guy to hit the 1,000-point mark as well. He's only a few points away from Big Z's at an Anderson. So, he's going to keep going. Obviously, he's kicking at a really high level as well. He's going to keep moving up that ladder. My question for you, though, JB, is having seen him return to both punting and kicking duties, has he made himself a case to be sought after maybe in the offseason for a punting kicking specialist, a guy who can do both? He'd done it before for pretty much his whole career until last season. We know how good Haggerty is. Should Boris Bede be a kicker and punter in the CFL?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I would be in favor of Toronto keeping him. He is fantastic. He has absolutely been one of the reasons that the team has turned around, in my opinion. I mean, 2019 was a terrible kicking year. So yeah, I think Haggerty has been great too, and I think that was an interesting, I won't say experiment, but like that has been good. I think that has made sense. I know why they brought him in, to be more of a specialist, and you could probably point to BD's improved field goal percentage. Maybe not having to do both has helped him, but he certainly is capable of both and has shown that. So I don't see any reason why, if that's what he wants to do, the Argos could let him do that. I certainly hope that they keep him. I don't think you should let a player like him leave.
And the tough thing with a guy like Bede is that if someone wants him as a kicker punter, it's going to be more money, right? Like, you're going to pay more money to a guy who's doing both jobs than you will for a guy that's just doing one or the other. And usually your contract structure will take care of that, where they've got you covered, so they can't, bring you in as the kicker and then suddenly, you got both responsibilities. And so the question would be then, and it's such a, like, they need to keep John Haggerty. He's such a good punter. And so I think it's going to have to be one of those things where Bede really wants to stay, wants to be an Argo. And I can't see them, in terms of global players, like John Haggerty is fantastic. He's as good a punter as Boris Bede is. Haggerty is better. And so to have both of those guys, and we know the relationship they have is great. The punter holder, kicker holder dynamic is fantastic as well. So I would love to see the Argos find a way to keep both. I think that one's going to be difficult when contracts are up, because I do think there's a tremendous value for other teams for a guy who can only take up one roster spot and handle both of your punting and kicking duties. It'd be a team who doesn't use a kicker punter for a global spot, and they want to bring him in instead to do both jobs and save a roster spot. It's not really a money save per se, but it is a roster spot save, and that's huge. We know what injuries are like in the CFL, so that's a massive thing. So we'll see. Again, off-season topics coming up, but he hit that mark. I figured we'd better talk about it. AJ Ouellette does another superhuman thing, and initially nobody noticed, because I think the CFL is so used to AJ Ouellette doing amazing things every week. And so I saw this tweet go out this morning, I think it was, of AJ Ouellette squatting 635 pounds. And the visual, again, you gotta get on there to see it. The CFL put it out, I think, as well. I retweeted it too. He's got 12 45 plates on the bar, and then capped by 2 25 plates. And you've got 3 Argonauts surrounding him as spotters, because it takes a team to spot an effort like that. This is a superhero move to squat 635 pounds. He's a running back. Running backs do not lift that much weight. And I'm not one to encourage finding your 1 rep max in season, but I think AJ Ouellette knows exactly what he's doing. Obviously, he's a gifted personal trainer, knows his body better than anybody knows anything. So I'm not worried about it in that regard, but it was amazing to see him do that. So to go from wrestling to the things he's doing on the field to now 635 pound squat. Like, people went crazy about Shai Ross doing his flip and dunking the Oreo in the milk. This is twice that. But wasn't getting the same looks. Didn't go quite as viral, but he deserves all the attention he gets from that video. JB, what's the rest plan going forward? The Argos have clinched. There's still a third of the season to go. The difficulty is the salary cap, because unless you put guys on 6-game injured reserve, like you put them on the 6-game injured list, that takes them through to the rest of the season. But that's the only way that you can actually make this easy in terms of salary cap. And they do have guys banged up, but not, you don't typically want to lose guys for the last 6 games of the season. That's not ideal. Some guys, I think they're going to have to, just because they are that injured, they need to recover. But it's going to be a tough salary management thing, because how it works is if you're on the 1 game injured list, your cost still counts towards the cap. And so if you bring practice roster players up, well, you have to pay those guys, but you're also counting on the cap the players that you've got on the 1 game injured list. So it's not like you can, but if you took out your whole team and replaced it with the entire practice squad, it would send you way over the cap. You can't really do that. So what is the plan going forward? How are the Argos going to find ways to rest guys and be creative over these last 6 games? Or do you think they shouldn't do that? Do you think they should just full steam ahead and let's play it like we're still fighting for the number 1 spot?
Yeah, I probably lean more towards that. I think in this unusual situation, you can't shut down a team for 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, I think, sports is filled with number 1 seeds being knocked off the first week because of rust. I think if a guy is 85%, then you sit him. You let everybody who plays be 100% when they play. So that changes the equation a little. For me, though, I think you have to play it. I mean, maybe you take guys out in the second half a little faster than maybe you would. But I think you got to play football. You can't take 2 months off and then fire it up for the playoffs. I think you rest guys who are not hurt or who are maybe hurting a little, and everybody else you play, and you just have to play. If guys get hurt, I mean that's just the nature of football. Sometimes guys get hurt on the second play of the game. Sometimes guys get hurt doing a non-contact drill at practice. There's not necessarily any, way to hide from an injury. I mean, most injuries in professional sports are not predictable. If they were, they would have less of them, like whether it be Achilles or quad or soft tissue or whatever, these things just happen. And I'm not worried about hiding from it. I think you probably gear down in second halves if you're up. But other than that, I would play full steam ahead. I really would. The guys are built for this season. That's what they were built for last year. And the last game of the season, you probably give guys a rest, which is normal. But other than that, I would go forward.
The guys I'm most worried about, who I think I want to try and find ways to rest, as much as they'll hate it, because I know all these guys will hate it. Adarius Pickett, I want to try and have guys get reps for him. You dress him still, send him out there, start him, play him, but really heavy substitutions. One of the reasons is, as we saw when he was injured in Calgary, they don't have a replacement for Adarius Pickett. And so I think that provides you an opportunity to start finding that. Is it Qantas Stiggers? Would it be maybe Maurice Carnell if he can come back down the stretch? Things like that. Play around with guys to see if you can find another Sam.
That's kind of the Nick Nurse idea, right? Where, during that regular season, he really was playing with different lineups and trying to win, but also being in a laboratory. And I think that's a terrific idea. I think you're not playing not to win. You are playing to win. You're not going to suddenly try Bede at defensive end or something, clownish.
He would love that.
I know. But you are trying different looks. Maybe try out some different things in terms of, maybe some different combos or a couple of different zones. Maybe try different front, try different. Yeah, I think you definitely have more auditions to see, who might be able to play rush end or who potentially can be your backup field half. And, you don't have a lot of things to play around with, but I do agree. I think now is the time to start developing that depth chart at a couple of different positions.
And the other 2 guys, Chad Kelly, obviously, that, because Chad Kelly is the season, right? He's the one guy who is the season. Adarius Pickett, as valuable as he is, and he might be the second most valuable guy on the team. I don't think he's the season. So Chad Kelly, like how much rest do you get him? Like he's fighting for MOP honors. He's fighting for records.
I think the same deal. I think you know, if he is 100%, he plays. If he's a little banged up, I think you play 2. If he's hurt, then you sit him. But I think you want your quarterback to play. Again, you can't hide from this stuff. There's no, you can take 4 weeks off, and on the first play, there's a problem, right? I mean, I just think you are reasonable, and if you're up, maybe you take him out a little quicker. You got to have a quicker hook in the second half. But other than that, I think you want Chad to play. I think, this is his first year. He still has lots of areas to grow. So I think you want him getting reps, and you want him improving on the areas that that he needs to keep improving on. He's not a 10-year vet. He has lots to do, and that's only going to come from CFL live reps.
I really want to get Dukes and Scott reps as well. Like that is needed. It's needed badly.
You're more enamored with them than I.
Well, they need reps. Like it's not that I am more enamored with them. I both think I think they both have potential. But the thing is, you just can't go in. You can't not have them get reps and go into the playoffs like that. We saw that Chad Kelly was needed at the end of the Grey Cup, and they just can't go in cold.
I just think that change has to be a trade. I don't think I don't think you've got turkey. I don't think you've got turkey in the oven. I think you got tomato soup in the cupboard.
I would like to see both Dukes and Scott get a whole game. That would be my strategy down the stretch. I think you rest Kelly for 2 games. I would like them to
have each of them to have their own game somewhere down the road, maybe in Ajax or.
That's. I'm thinking like the Winnipeg game or something like that.
Oh my God!
You put one of them out there, and the last game of the season, you put the other guy out there for a full game.
They can split the final game of the season that nobody watches.
Ugh. All right. Well, we have slightly different strategies. The third guy, DeVaris Daniels. I think he's, as much as this has been a committee at receiver group, I do think he is crucial in keeping that unit together. I do think that he has stuff that the rest of the receiving group doesn't. I don't think there's anyone that can really be DeVaris Daniels if he goes down. And whereas I think with every other guy, there's not another DeMonte Coates, there's not another Curly Gittens Jr., but I think the drop-off is less than what you get with DeVaris. So he'd be another guy that I would go heavy into resting. And playing a position that does get hurt a lot, that inside slot, the boundary slot, takes a lot of contact. DeVaris, we see how brave he is on catches over the middle. He'll go up for anything. And so he's another guy I'd like to try and rest down the stretch because I think he's crucial for the playoffs. So those 3 guys, I think, for me, need to really mix and rest. Everyone else, you cycle through what you can, but understand, like, from a fan point of view, if you don't get why certain players are still out there, it's largely because the Argos, any team, is in a position at this stage of the season where you just can't afford salary cap wise to rest everybody. It doesn't work that way. So that's why you're still going to see most of the starters out there in the 6 games down the stretch. Let's get to our injury report, JB. This is kind of a weird one. There's a bunch of guys coming off the 6th game for both Hamilton and Toronto, but most will probably go back on it again. But that's why there's a lot of names that appear on the injury list this week. So we'll look at the Argos first. So Darius Bledek appears. He's back up after the last 6-game stretch. And he was limited in practice both yesterday and today. I don't expect him to be brought back out because if he's limited, not able to go full still, I just think it's not worth the risk. I think you put him back on the 6th game, and I think probably at some point, if he's able to practice full or you feel he's at that level, then it may be worth, as we get close to the end of the season, testing him out again and seeing if he can go full at that point. Or if there's an injury along the offensive line, another injury along the offensive line, then maybe you do that. So he's a guy to watch, but going limited 2 days in a row, I think he probably goes back on that 6th game. Other O-lineman, Isaiah Cage, didn't practice yesterday, was limited today with a hamstring injury. There's no way I put Isaiah Cage out there this week. A hamstring injury, not able to go full today, didn't practice yesterday. To me, that's an automatic, like at least let's sit for a week. And I probably would lean towards holding Cage out for a few weeks. I don't think he needs to go in the 6th game, but I think I would hold him out for a few weeks for sure, just to make sure he's good. He's a difference maker. So I think that makes sense. Shane Richards was able to go full. Travion Tate went full. That's the O-line. Defensive line, interesting. Jared Brinkman was limited yesterday, went full today. Another guy that I don't think you should rush back, but man, was he missed. Just the last few weeks where you had teams that were able to have some success running the football. Montreal last week, it would have been nice on some of those short yardage plays to have Jared Brinkman in the middle to shut it down. I would love to see him come back at some point. Doesn't need to be this week, but I don't think he's a guy that's going to go back on the 6th game. Other defensive lineman, Dwayne Hendricks, wasn't able to practice today. Listed with a leg injury, but didn't get listed as a non-participant yesterday at all. So that's kind of an interesting one. I wonder if something happened in practice. But again, if he's not able to practice today, well, whatever it is, sit him, let him rest. There's no need to get him involved right now either. Enoch Mwamba, he's due up again off the 6th game, but he'll probably go back on it. He didn't practice yesterday or today. He's the only linebacker on there. Jamal Peters was limited with a groin injury. Another guy that I would sit. Again, they've got answers. They've got things they can do at corner, so I would not hurry to get him back involved. He's so important. And Cam Phillips wasn't able to practice yesterday or today, so another guy I think sit. Tommy Neal's been playing really well in that spot, so just go with that. Andrew Harris didn't practice yesterday or today. We saw him with that knee injury. Looked like it was better than we initially thought. He was up and jogging around a little bit on the sideline, but we haven't heard any official word from the team yet, so fingers crossed on him. But again, sit. That's fine, and he could go in the 6th game. That's fine. Like Andrew Harris knows what he's doing. I don't worry about Andrew Harris being cold coming into the playoffs. Put him on the 6th game. Let him get to full health. They've got a ton of running backs that they can cycle through and find ways to get AJ rest without having to be Andrew Harris. So
yeah, I have a feeling you're going to see a very busy 6th game designation.
You might, and I don't think that's wrong.
No, I think it's smart, but I think there's a very good chance that there are a number of players that they essentially put on there.
Spencer Nichols able to go full. It'd be nice to see him get back into action. And then Maurice Carnell IV, limited today. Didn't practice yesterday. Limited today. He put out some pictures of him practicing. He's obviously getting hyped up because he can sense that he's getting closer. Our initial timeline that we heard way back in the spring was he was aiming for August. That was the goal, end of August. And obviously we didn't quite meet that, but there was less urgency as well. I think, playing it safe, you always want to play it safe with a knee injury like this. And so he is getting very close. And maybe that's something that we see sometime over the next few weeks. Maybe Maurice Carnell IV is brought in, and there's a player that I want to see what kind of difference he can make at the halfback spot. Maybe trying out a little bit of Sam as well, just in case, as an insurance policy for Pickett. But we remember how valuable he was last season. So that's a huge add as well. For the Hamilton Tiger Cats, hard to read. They were so, just like rewatching that Hamilton Winnipeg game, they had guys in weird spots. You had 2 offensive linemen dressed as fullbacks. It was interesting strategy and stuff, but just look at their injury report. It's a mess as well. Like Bo Levi Mitchell appears on there, but he didn't practice yesterday and today. His 6th game was up, but I think he'll be shelved again for the final 6 probably. Chris Edwards limited at linebacker. I gotta think he'll find a way to play. He didn't practice yesterday, limited today. If he can go at all, he will go. Be sure of that. James Butler, limited yesterday, but he was able to go full today. I expect him to be out there. Joel Figueroa, offensive lineman, who was, I think, he was dressed as a fullback last week, did not practice the last 2 days. And I think maybe Richard Leonard might be the other really interesting one to watch. They've had some injuries in their defensive backfield. If Richard Leonard can come back, that does change things a little bit from what you've got out there right now. I think it doesn't really affect my plans, but like in terms of my OCDC that we got coming up, but that is something to keep an eye on. All right, JB, game preview. I have not changed these standings in months. This may be the week. Hamilton, believe it or not, is tied with Montreal. How does this happen, JB? They are a game away from being in a spot to host a playoff game potentially.
Yeah, they found a quarterback. They have a pretty talented roster, and they have, quarterback who kind of runs the gamut somewhere between a game manager and a hidden gem. He is clearly very smart. His pocket movement is very good. His understanding of the offense, his ability to fit it into windows is also excellent. They've found that, and he has them going, and the defense is are turning the ball over and giving them interceptions and giving Hamilton good field position. They have a good kick return game. I think they were always a good team. They just didn't have a good quarterback, and now they do. And he is very efficient, which is enough to make them, competitive in a relatively, I wouldn't say mediocre. I would say like a competitive league.
The two guys that have really stepped up for them were not people I expected at the beginning of the season. One of them I hadn't even heard. Like, I didn't know who Powell was before the season started. Katsantonis on the defense has been awesome the last few games. He's really coming to his own. He was the guy that I wanted the Argos to target offensively when Adeleke first was injured. And Katsantonis has just turned into a monster at safety. He's one of the better safeties in the league right now. And I thought Adeleke was that beforehand. So yeah, he's been really impressive. And then Powell on the offensive side of the ball. Like, who thought that Powell and Katsantonis would be what brought the Tiger Cats back? But they seem to have done that. One of the reasons I like having a podcast like this, JB, is that when we say things and the few times that we're actually right, we've actually got evidence for it. And we both liked Taylor Powell from the start. We both thought he had something interesting because we knew going in. I remember the first time he played, we were looking at him, we're like, well, this guy has no measurables whatsoever. He's got no arm speed. He's got really no mobility. He's not particularly big or anything like that. And yet there was something about him. He was smart. He was just not making mistakes, making really smart decisions. And we've seen him evolve and now starting to pick a little bit further downfield. And he's really found a relationship with Tim White too. And so that's helped elevate his game. And he's, like you said, he's a real quarterback. And so Hamilton's going to have they may have decisions to make. Like, are they really going to go with him if Bo Levi Mitchell and Schultz are healthy down the stretch, ready to go? Do you go with Powell?
Yeah, I don't think you have a choice. I think Bo Levi is probably on the 6th game and then on the Greyhound.
Ooh, it's going to be hard. I think. Like, I agree. I just think Powell's played really well, but that's a really tough decision to make. That's tough to sell to fans, and you are setting yourself up if you fail to look like the GOAT, because it's so easy to criticize that move. And how often do we see coaches shy away from a move like that? Because they know how easy it is to then point and say, well, of course, you started this Powell kid over Bo Levi Mitchell, one of the greatest of all time. Of course we lost. Like, it's such an easy turnaround, but I agree. I think he's playing in a way that makes Hamilton scary. So I don't know. It's not our call, fortunately. It's time for OCDC. OCDC is brought to you by the Business Barbershop and Spa. They invite you to experience Etobicoke's premier licensed men's grooming lounge for hair, face, and body care. They're celebrating 10 years in the Kingsway. You got to go check them out. Just steps from Royal York Subway in the Kingsway on Bloor Street West. Go down there, book an appointment, get a haircut, get a shave, get a scalp massage. They've got it all. It's a great place to go get your haircut. It's where I get my haircut. You got to try it out too. I promise you won't regret it. The Business Barbershop and Spa in the Kingsway. OCDC, I'll go first, JB, with Hamilton Tiger Cats. Let's start with Hamilton. For offense this week, they had an interesting strategy last week against Winnipeg, and I think they should employ that again. They were using Dayton Black, the offensive lineman, the backup offensive lineman, as a fullback. I talked about that in the injury segment. They had 2 offensive linemen out as fullbacks. I think they dressed like 5 fullbacks or something. But they were using Black as like a 6th offensive lineman, but starting him out of the backfield at times. it's really interesting. They had packages where it's black here. You've got Butler, you've got McAllister. You basically got 2 running backs and an extra offensive lineman, and they're passing out of those sets. And you're really able to max protect, sometimes only sending 3 guys out into the pattern. But it worked really well. Hamilton's offensive line has struggled at times this year. Powell is a guy that, like we talked about, can't necessarily buy time for himself. And so by giving him extra time this way, eventually Godwin and White are going to open up. They're working together on the boundary side most of the time. That worked really well. So for me, I want to go right back to that. I want to buy time with that pass protection unit. I want to get the ball to White. I also think I want to mix in misdirection with McAllister, have him coming across on jets. I wouldn't mind seeing him run some counters too, draw attention with Butler. You know he draws attention, counter out with McAllister. There are ways you can use those 2 guys together creatively while also having a great athlete and offensive lineman like Black in the backfield too. So that's probably how I'd go at it. A very similar game plan to what the Argos just saw Hamilton do against Winnipeg. What is your defensive plan for the Tiger Cats, JB?
In terms of stopping the Argos?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say what Toronto is going to do. I would assume Toronto is going to even though like I'm for the starters playing, I think you're probably going to see fairly vanilla play calling. I think to some extent you're certainly not looking to put a lot of plays on film, so that's kind of a tricky balance. Chad has shown that he can get frustrated, so I think that you definitely want to have, I think you want to have a man coverage in that single high safety, reading Chad and looking to make those picks, because he has shown that he can get really frustrated and he wants to push the ball down the field, and he, it seems to not necessarily want the checkdowns. So I think as a defense, you are going to give them the checkdowns, and you're going to play guys deep and basically, dare him to throw the ball downfield. And, I think you're going to do that in the secondary is allow the underneath, because he doesn't seem to want to take it as much yet. And then from the run perspective, with just Ouellette and without having Harris as a 1-2, maybe McMahon gets a little more look, but I think you want to really kind of hammer on Ouellette. He is the engine of that team. The guys feed off him. The fans feed off him. He's the fourth quarter closer. Physically, can you do that? Can you hold up against Ouellette for a whole game? No one seems to have been able to, but I think I'm definitely looking to run blitz on first down, and I'm gonna have that deep shell and really dare Chad to put together 9-10 play drives, because he seems reluctant to do that.
Let's switch over to the good guys, and my offensive plan for Toronto is not as exciting as in some past weeks, because I think there has to be a focus on keeping Chad upright. I think that's hugely important now. I also think there needs to be a focus on backfield rotation. I don't really want AJ Ouellette getting more than like 6 or 7 carries. I think you use Adeboboye, you use McMahon, you use Lee.
Yeah, 100%.
Like just cycle them through. And it's not like I'm saying don't play AJ. No, he starts. But I don't think he needs to be out there for entire drives. I think he gets a carry or two, put in the other guys. And I really want to see the other guys. Like I want to see McMahon. I want to see Leak. I want to see Adeboboye. These guys have all shown promise. And so let's see what they can do. So a part of my strategy is run heavy. I really want the Argonauts to run. Rely on the run this week. You've got the horses to be able to do it. Let's see what some of these guys can do. When they are passing, quick. I want quick game. Think Tom Brady in his last year in Tampa, like 1.5 seconds, ball's gone. Like just quick reads. That's stuff that I want Chad to really work into his game anyway. He likes to create. His instinct is to hold onto the ball longer, to move the pocket if he has to, because he's looking deeper downfield. I want slants. I want speed outs. I want really quick hitters this week just to keep him upright. And I think they can pick on the field side with Hamilton, especially with Tommy Neal. This could be a huge game for Tommy Neal. He's usually off to the field side. He's got great height. When he extends those arms too, he's like 20 feet tall. And most of Hamilton's secondary to the field is pretty short. Between like Katsantonis, Woods, Lawson, and Richard Leonard, they're all like 5'8", 5'9". And then you've got Neal who towers over them. Use that, throw him jump balls, give him chances to go up and get it. We've seen that he'll go and make those plays. So whether it's boxing out or putting up jump balls, and it's not just him, they've got a few different tall receivers they can go to, but I think he's a real mismatch for that field side. So that's my offensive strategy. What are you saying for the Toronto defense, JB?
Powell is he's kind of the opposite in some ways of Kelly. Powell wants to matriculate down the field, high percentage passes. He's looking second level. He's really good at finding that spot behind the linebackers. He wants to, he's a smart guy. He's looking for the areas. I think the Calgary game plan, even though Mayer threw for 1 million touchdowns and turned into John Elway, I still love that game plan. And I know it sounds counterintuitive. I want that game plan against Hamilton. And, let's hope that there isn't some bizarre bust-heavy 500-yard, 5-touchdown game from Powell. But I like that game plan. I like that 10-yard and in, absolutely smothering and challenging Powell to push the ball down the field, like the flip of Kelly. I think you challenge Powell to move the ball down the field. I think you come up and you're looking to stop the run. And, if Powell can make long, deep passes, then you tip your hat. But I don't think he can. I think you want that 10-yard and in. You want to hammer the screens. You want all those quick little hitters. You want to be on top of that and really see can that line protect him against the Argos, sack exchange long enough for him to be effective down the field. And, you're probably rotating towards White to make sure that he doesn't kill you. I don't want to see White with 125 yards, but that's what I'm looking to. I know, dig out the Calgary game plan. It was a great game plan despite 34 points or whatever the Calgary put up.
Yeah, Mayer looked ridiculous that game, but I agree. I know I like what you're saying, and especially rolling to White's side because he's been fantastic. And the Argos don't want the Argos really, while they don't necessarily need the win, you do not want Hamilton hanging around right now. I don't know how you see it. If I'm the Argos, I don't really want to play Hamilton in the playoffs. I know what Montreal is, and I think they will show up exactly as who they are. I think Hamilton's just one of those weird teams. They could pull out just some strange result. They make me nervous. Calgary makes me nervous. Everyone else, I think I know who they are. I think they'll show up, with the identity that we think they will. And with Hamilton and Calgary, you just don't know, and that frightens me. So I think you want to get rid of Hamilton, push them down, have them fighting with Ottawa, and let Ottawa get back into it a little bit. And I hope that Montreal can wrap up that second spot. So I think they got to take Hamilton out. It is one thing, JB. These are getting tough because so many of our one things have either come through or are less relevant now. For me, mine is related to health. One hit on Chad Kelly. That is all the Argos are allowed to surrender. He gets hit once. That can be on a sack. It can be on a scramble. But one hit, that's it. From every other play, he's got to protect himself. He's not going to take contact. I don't even want him taking hurries and pressures. One hit. That's my one thing. What's yours, JB?
Mine is, I know we were singing the praises of specials, and I think I conflated some stats a little bit there, but the big play is the specials have been good, but they have had some issues on kickoff return and some big plays on specials. Even though there are a lot of things they do really well, Hamilton is also very good at kickoff return. So for me, if I had one thing, I would like to keep Hamilton's kickoff average under 20.
Yeah, I
So
think
that would be my goal. If Hamilton's kickoff return average is below 20, I think the Argos win comfortably.
and Hamilton has had some really nice returns against Toronto. I don't know
Yeah,
what it is about Hamilton and Toronto, but for whatever reason, it has hurt the Argos.
it's the one area. I mean, I think it's the one area on specials that needs some tightening.
It's time for Put Me Down for 20. We had a little bit of a rough week last week, but we'll try our best to make up for it.
Yeah.
But before we get into Put Me Down for 20, I just want to remind you that while gambling can be a fun way to enhance your sports viewing experience, less fun if you are having weeks like JB and I, and that's why it's important to do so responsibly. Set a budget, never bet more than you're happy to lose. And if you or anyone you know develops a problem gambling, you can always call the Ontario Problem Gambling Helpline, 1-888-230-3505. I was close last week to one of them. DeVaris Daniels touchdown at plus 175. It was in the end zone, hit his hands in the end zone. DeVaris never drops the football. And that one just didn't come through. But that was my bet hanging in the balance. And then I had Winnipeg minus 6.5. That was nowhere close. You had BC minus 14, which did not. They were lucky to get away with that game. And Harris is the first rushing touchdown. That was always going to be a gamble, but a bit of bad luck on that one. So redemption time, JB. You're sitting at 53 golden fleeces. I am back down to 314 and change. Let's take a look at what we got for this week. So I'll go first. My first bet, I think the line is inaccurate in the Toronto-Hamilton game because I don't think it's taking into account that Toronto doesn't need this anymore. Now, they're still going to come out and try and win the game. I have no doubt about that. But it's different when you don't need it. Hamilton needs it. And they've got the line set at 10 points right now. That's going to come way down. I just think that this is going to be a tight game. And that reminds me, we didn't even get to our score predictions. We're out of order here. After this segment, we'll go into score predictions and cover that. But I think this is going to be tight. So Hamilton plus 10, I think the Argos win. I think it is right down to the wire, a little bit like the Montreal game last week. And then with my other 10 golden fleeces, I like Calgary at plus 100. Calgary to win at even money. They are coming off a bye. I know Edmonton is the hot team right now. They're on fire, but I still think top to bottom on the roster, I think Calgary's a better team. And I think I don't feel comfortable with Edmonton winning their third straight home game. I just don't know if I see that happening. So that's good value for me. JB, where are you going with your golden fleeces?
My meager fleeces. Well, I've given up guessing which running back is going to get the ball in the backfield. I don't understand why BC didn't win huge. They basically just decided to win the game in the final 2 minutes. So I'm going to open with Toronto winning from 1 to 6 points. I think I agree with you. I think it's going to be close, and pretty good odds on that in terms of plus 350 for Toronto to win 1 to 6. And my other one, God help me, involving the Elks and BC. I have the Elks winning at half and BC winning the game at plus 600.
There's no chance. Like, those are your two. No. Like, just why don't you put Ottawa in there as well?
No, don't worry about that. Those are my. All I've got are big swings. So there we go.
Swinging for the fences. All right, I'm all for it. Let's see. So, you need one of these to cash in at some point. We don't want a situation where you run out of golden fleeces and we have to re-up.
I'll have to go to Mount Olympus and ask for a marker.
Predictions, JB. How does the Argos game end? What do you see this final score being?
I do think it's close. I was actually leaning towards picking Hamilton, but I didn't want to pick against Argos twice in a row. I think that Toronto wins 24-20.
Yeah, I think pretty similar. I'm going to go against one of those trends. What was it? They never win when they score.
They're 1-42, I believe, when scoring 19 or less.
So it's going to be this week. The Argos win 18-17. It's a defensive battle, and they buck the trend. They go against the stats. An Arbuckle special. An Arbuckle special, 18-17 for the Argos. Let's get into our CFL picks to wrap this one up, JB.
Oh,
Week 16. It was rough last week. You were 1-3. I was 2-2. I'm at 38-21 on the season. You're 36-23 on the season. Still, we're in respectable range here, but we got to have a bounce back week. So
that was not a good week.
Weird though. So Saskatchewan at Ottawa. What do you have?
You know what? I'm going to take Ottawa at home. I still, I still believe that they have some pride, and their season is not over. And I don't think Saskatchewan is unbeatable. I'm going to take Ottawa at home.
It's like Ottawa is great until the final minute or two. Like they just find they play great. They looked outstanding last week against BC, and then as soon as you hit those final 3 minutes, they fold faster than Superman on Laundry Day. So I am going to take the Rough Riders. I think they will pull it out again. I think it's going to be in the last few minutes. BC at Edmonton. What do you think?
Well, I think Edmonton will be winning at half and BC will win the game. That's what I think.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, you have your bet, so you've already got BC. I can't pick against BC. I know, like I said, and I mixed up my BCs and Edmontons earlier in the last segment. Edmonton is playing really good football right now. They are not at the level of BC. BC's shut them out twice this season. This is their third matchup. They haven't scored a point yet against BC. And I know this is Trey Ford. I know it's different. I know Edmonton's hot, but I don't know if he's that big a difference. So until I see otherwise, I think BC wins this game. Maybe Edmonton covers, but yeah, BC wins.
Well, TSN will support that as they believe Trey Ford is
they love Trey Ford.
The choice over Chad Kelly.
I saw someone say that. That's ridiculous.
A bit odd.
Montreal at Calgary. I have Calgary in this one, like I said. I think it's really good value on Calgary too. Montreal having to travel, go to a difficult place to play off a huge emotional letdown, and Calgary's coming off a bye. I think the Stampeders win.
I mean, who knows? I mean, how did Hamilton beat Winnipeg?
How does anything happen?
Yeah, I don't think that Montreal is... I think it's going to be really close. I just have to pick Calgary at home. I don't think Montreal is that talented. I think they're very well coached. I think that Calgary still has enough talent. I would take Mayer as my quarterback if I had to choose between him and Fajardo. So I'm going to go Calgary.
Yeah, that's going to be a tight one. Because it should be another good battle though this week after all the great games last week, and then we both have Toronto over Hamilton to wrap this one up. So JB, the last time maybe we get to see the Tiger Cats this season.
Oh my God! Please, the last time we have to see the Tiger Cats.
It's a 7:00 start at BMO Field. We hope to see you there, and we hope to see you before that at Something in the Water in Liberty Village. Again, it's 151 East Liberty, just steps from BMO Field. Make sure you get down there for some Longboat Pale Ale and a hot dog. And yeah, hopefully we get a chance to catch up as well. So that will just about do it for us on this episode of the X's and Argos podcast. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.